Hello, everyone. This is Megan with Bangert, and today we're going to be talking about Release 2 for 2026. As always, if you need to see the release notes and want to read through them for yourself, it's here on your homepage, right here, and this will say now out instead of coming soon. You can read the release notes here. It's got the highlights from Sage, and you can always drill down into any section you want to see the changes that have been made there. To start off with, we're going to go over this new roles permissions report we have rolled out now. It's going to be in company, admin, under the history and reports, this roles permissions report here. So essentially what this does is you can run this for a specific date range to see any changes that have been made to your roles. Or you can search this without a date range for a specific role, say the PM user here, user role, and see everything that this role has access to. So let's run this with no dates for the PM role here. We'll hit view. And you can see this. It'll be listed by the role name. If we go back to customize, role name or when created. So if we leave it at role name, it's going to be role name, then by the module, and then everything else. The policy name and the values, aka what they have access to and how much access. So the PM user has the ability to list, read, add, modify, delete, see the ACH, and unmask the vendors here. And you can also see who created it and who modified it last on their permissions. So if we open this up to be all roles, and I'll just do, say, this year. So you can see any changes that have been made to any of the roles, and this will be listed by the role name here, and then who made these changes and when. So if something gets changed, you can always come in here and see when it was added to that role. I like this report, mostly, running it open to see all of your permissions, and you can run this open for all of them. It's going to be a big report, but then you can export this to Excel and compare things side by side in a pivot table or just in Excel through like a filter system. So check out this report and we'll move on to our next release. In this release, we are finally getting the ability to process and pay customer refunds through accounts payable in Intacct. We had previously received the ability to record customer refunds in Intacct that we had already processed outside of Intacct, but now we can print checks and pay those refunds to customers all inside of Intacct. So setting this up is a threefold process. We've got to enable the configurations, set up the user permissions, and then get our customers set for refunds. And then obviously we can actually do a refund in system. So let's get started by turning on the refund configurations through accounts receivable. So we'll hop into my demo here. We'll go to accounts receivable, setup, configuration. And previously, the record refund box was up here, but we've now moved them all down here to the customer refunds section. So we'll turn on record, and we'll also turn on process payments in accounts payable. So it wants a GL account for these. So I've gone ahead and set up refunds due to customers, and we'll make our summary 1 per refund. And you can set up your own journal for refunds. I don't think it's completely necessary. You can always use the accounts payable journal, because this is technically an accounts payable. And you can set up your own document sequences here. I'm just going to use my AR credit adjustment sequence. So I'll hit save. And now that this is set up, we want to make sure that we have the permissions for all the roles that are going to be using this able to do so. So we'll go over to our roles and we'll add this for our AR clerk here. So we'll go to their subscriptions. We'll go to accounts receivable. And now at the bottom, we have customer refunds. So we'll give them the whole lot. Hit save. Save again. And if this is something you're doing for yourself, you'll probably have to refresh your screen or even log in and log back out to see the changes we've made to your permissions to see the refunds in accounts receivable. So once you've got all your roles set up and your permissions set the way you need to, we'll go over it to accounts receivable. All under payments, there is now refunds. So that's step one and step two, making sure you've got it turned on and then you've got access to do things. So now let's go to a customer and see what's changed here. So we'll go to Bangert Inc., our favorite customer. And now there's a refunds tab. So I've got this turned on to auto generate, and it's got a link to a vendor that's auto generated because I was testing this out earlier. So I'll hit cancel, and then let's go to this Peach Inc. here, and let's give them an auto generation. So you'll notice when we click this, it's going to gray out this box, and it's not going to allow us to select a vendor from the drop-down list, which is great because it's going to auto-generate one for us. We'll hit save. And if we go back into Peach Inc., we can see that under refunds, it's created a new vendor for us. And if you needed something different, it's going to copy over all of your contact information and everything there. If you needed to make any changes to that vendor, you can click here or even just go into accounts payable vendor. Like if you had a different mailing address for checks, as opposed to like where your customer receives their invoices and things like that, you can change that there. So done. And just one more. I'm going to go to this test customer here because I already have a vendor I want to connect it to, this test vendor. So you would just come in here, connect it to your vendor, hit save. So anything that you generate will go to that vendor. So if you've done some refunds in the past without this new feature, and you have a vendor set up for a customer, you can connect them this way. So let's drop down to an entity. Let's do a refund. Now that we've got set up and our customers are ready to go, let's test out a refund. All right. So hop over to accounts receivable refunds. And what you want to know is that this is refunds for any existing credit balances. You can't create a credit balance in this screen to refund, but if they've got a duplicate payment or they've overpaid something and have an open credit balance on their ledger, you can refund it from here. So let's go ahead and create a refund. I know Bangert Inc. accidentally double paid me for their last invoice. So there's my customer, there's the pay to, that's going to be our vendor here. You can add attachments, you can add a reference, and then here's our refund date. If you choose record transfer, it's just going to automatically create the refund without having it sit in AP to pay, but I'm going to process through AP so we can print out a check. So here you'll have all of your available credits. I'm going to check this. So here was the overpayment amount. You'll see the original transaction amount and the credit available in the refund we're going to do. You can also click into here to see the details of the original payment, what invoices it was applied to, and everything like that. So I'm going to hit post and new because I know Peach also overpaid us a little bit on their last payment as well. So I'll put Peach in here. It's going to drop their new vendor in here. And I'm going to also want to process through AP. Here's their overpayment. Check that and post. So you will see here my 2 refunds that are going to be processed through AP. So if we hop over to accounts payable, our bills, we'll see those 2 here. And we can just go to pay bills screen and we can pay those like normal. So I'll scroll down. Actually, let's see. Actually, there's a lot of fake invoices here for us. So I'm just going to hit apply. There's our payment, and we can select check and pay it just like normal.
All right, let's talk about some enhancements to fixed assets management. So now they have added the capability to split an asset into multiple assets. So if you buy 5 computers, 5 laptops, for example, and you want to split them out later into 5 different laptops, you might have sold one or disposed of one, then you now have the ability to be able to split those assets. So down here, it tells you that we're going to be on the asset record. We're going to view it, and we're going to hit split, and we're going to put the split date in. We're going to create the names, costs, and if applicable, salvage values for those assets. And the total cost has to equal the original total cost of the main asset you're splitting. So once you get all that done, it'll create these 5 different laptops, and you will then have that split created. Okay. Another feature they've added is the ability to revert partial disposals. So if you've accidentally disposed of an asset or partially disposed, you're going to want to revert it. For example, you're going to come here to the disposals tab on the asset. You're going to click 3 dots and hit revert. So it gives you the ability to remove the partially disposed journal entry, it removes that disposal record, and it restores depreciation back to where it was. Okay, so that's another new feature they've added. Enhancements to the construction in progress, the asset capitalization have been made as well. So if you, for example, bought some electrical components for a building and the building isn't going to be capitalized, it's not going to be done for another 6 months, you can now set the capitalization date to be that later 6-month date, for example. They also have given the ability to revert the capitalization if needed. The other updates to fixed assets management, disposals have been moved to a dedicated tab now on the asset. They have also put the fixed asset management section, if it's integrated in your environment, to the AP and purchasing areas. They've put a fixed asset management area down here at the bottom in the details of a bill line, for example. So you can create a new fixed asset, you can create multiple ones, you can create a construction in progress or add to a construction in progress asset, and or do not create an asset at all. Okay, so this fixed asset management area right here has more features now here for actions here on the left, for example. Okay. And finally, they have updated some labels to improve the clarity and consistency across the fixed asset management user interface so that some of the labels and fields will match up a little bit better. Then if you want to read all of the fixed asset management enhancements, go over here in your release menu and you'll see fixed asset management area here. Now let's talk about the enhancements to work in progress or WIP management. So now they have a feature where you can base the project's PM or project manager forecast on its primary forecast estimate. So in the estimate area, under projects estimates, you have this option for setting the primary forecast on an estimate. So this primary forecast button is turned on for job 22022 and then it's 1.44 million. So over in the actual WIP schedule, under projects, WIP schedules, right here, for 22022, if I look at the details, here is the PM forecast cost of completion at 1.444 million. Okay, so in order for this to work, you have to click on update PM forecast based on primary forecast estimate. So why this is useful? It is for when a project manager forecasts with an integrated software and they push that forecast into Intacct and tag it as the primary forecast. Whoever's running the WIP schedule, if it's the CFO or the accounting department, they can reference the forecast that came from that integration. Okay. And then also remember, you can change where columns are by using the edit layout function. So if I want to put it right here next to what I, as the CFO or accounting department, is going to use for over under, I can see it right there and adopt it by typing it in, or I can use the buttons at the top here to populate this number over here in the CFO column. Okay, so that's the use case scenario for the new project based on primary forecast, the new project PM forecast.
This release comes with a couple changes to our AP bank remittances for bank file and ACH payments. So the first is we have new entity level logos for AP bank remittances. This can be set up in company, entities, and then if you edit your entity, all the way at the bottom here, there's logos. So you can upload a logo here. I've already uploaded a different logo than the company logo here. So I'll just hit save. Note the requirements on this are 216 pixels by 43 pixels. So just watch out for that when you upload those. The second thing for those remittances and for those logos is we now have a separate remittance that can be customized specifically for bank file payments and ACHs. So this can be configured in your accounts payable module. So let's get into it here in our demo. So we'll go to accounts payable, setup, configuration. Then we will scroll down to the new section called remittance. You'll see I've already got mine turned on. We can exclude the PDF copy of the payment on the email. I'm going to include mine, so I'll leave that unchecked. You can include payment details in the notification email. That's really for your check remittances. And then you can also include secondary email contacts in the automatic payment notifications there. So new to this is this AP remittance email template, I've got this ACH remittance here, and then you can choose whether to have a file with the logo or a file without the logo. So let's save. And this can be customized at each entity level. So if you had an entity that didn't have its own logos, you can come into here and even change like the remittance. If each entity wanted to have a different email remittance, you could have a different template for that as well. And you can also customize with or without a logo on each one here. So we'll hit save. And then just to show you the difference, I'll send myself some posted payments. So here's an ACH bank file. I'm going to email a payment notification to myself. Confirm. And then on just a regular cash or check payment, I'll hit view and send this to myself as well. So we can look at my emails side by side to see the difference. Here is the bank file remittance. And here is the standard payment notification. So you'll see they both have an attachment, but this one is with my new logo, with my template that I set up. And then this is just the basic wording that Intacct has, and it's from the payer in the system. In this case, it was my buddy George here. So that's the difference. Go ahead and play around with your new remittance email templates. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments.
This next release feature involves items, which can be used directly in order entry, inventory, and purchasing. You now have the ability to upload, store, and view attachments directly on the item record inside Intacct. These can include things like images, PDF files, installation guides, which seems simple, but is very beneficial for users that need access to this type of information, especially related to inventory items or installation guides, or they have the ability, they need to send supporting documentation when they're sending out a quote or a purchase order for that item, and this now gives you that ability. Let's take a look. You can go directly into the item records throughout the system in Sage Intacct. I'm going to go right into top level at the inventory under items. And if we pull up an item, you'll see there'll be a new field for attachments now. I'm going to do a quick search on my item that I want to add something specifically for. And so I have an electrical panel. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And now you'll notice you have an attachment function right here. Now, if I want to add an attachment, I'll go over to Edit. And I'll have the ability, just like you do throughout Intacct and other areas, to add attachments. You can add and view them right here. You can browse and attach them manually through your browser. You can also drag and drop. So for example, I have a picture of the panel on my left screen. I'm going to go ahead and drag that over, and I'm going to drop the attachment right in here. And also I have a PDF file, which is the installation instruction manual for that attachment. I'm going to take that PDF and I'm also going to drag it up there as well. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. So now if we go back and take a look at that item again, once I'm in on the item, I have this attachment screen. I can do this in the view mode or the edit mode, but if I'm just in the view mode and I want to view the attachments that are there, if I click on it, it's going to show me that I actually have 2 attachments there. So I can easily come into here and open up the picture file if I want to see a picture of the item, or if I want to actually get the PDF, it'll open up the PDF instruction manual. So those attachments will now stay on the item record. They're available via API to view as well, and they will be available to retrieve all throughout the system, so they'll become very useful in Sage Intacct.
Managing retainage on construction projects just got a lot simpler in Sage Intacct. With flexible retainage release, you can now release retainage across all invoice lines on a project contract at once, using a single percentage. No more line-by-line manual work. What is retainage release? Retainage is money withheld from each invoice line until work is completed and approved. Releasing it means unlocking those held funds. Traditionally, this has been done line by line, but now with flexible retainage release, you can enter one percentage and Sage Intacct handles the math across every line. So the old way of doing it was going through projects, generate invoices, and you would release the retainage on each line, which would create an AR retainage invoice release. Now we have the option to release all the retainage on the project contract at once. So to do so, we're going to head to the project module and we'll go into project contracts. I'm going to be releasing it on my contract here. Make sure you select edit. You won't be able to see this feature in view. So let's edit the contract. And go into the billing details tab, which houses all of your project contract invoices and retainage release invoices, as well as any AR invoice payments received. So now we have this option to release the retainage on all of the project contract invoices. So within this contract, I'm still holding 10% retainage. And I'm going to show you some examples. So in this scenario, I haven't released any retainage yet. I'm going to go from 10% to 5%, and so I'll be entering 50%. So here, there's some examples of project contract lines and the retainage being currently held. You can see here that no retainage has been previously released. So the way Sage will calculate this is it's going to take the 50% we'll enter to go from 10 to 5%, and it's going to multiply the retainage currently held on the line, and then it will subtract any previously retainage held. So my foundation work line was 1,000. I released 50%, and it released $500. And you can see here some other examples below. So let's do that. Okay, so now I'm back on the release retainage screen. You can see this is the total retainage held. You have the option to select these question marks, and you can read some more info here. So right here, this is the minimum percentage of retainage to release across all lines. I'd like to release 50%, so I'm going to enter 50%. And this is the GL posting date. You want to make sure this is after your invoice date. It can't be before the invoice date. So this is the total retainage being released, 50%. I'm going to enter my release date. And you can also add a description here. So let's release now. So Sage is releasing this on all lines of the contract, so you don't have to do it line by line. And you can see that there's been a batch created. Make sure to refresh your screen. Go back into the billing details tab. And now you'll see that there is a retainage release invoice created. And it released 50% on all lines. So you can print this if you'd like. Just creates the AR invoice. Another example is a partial release. So this means that you've already released retainage on lines and you need to add a release for retainage. So in this scenario, I've already released 50% across all lines. and now I'm entering 75%. So here are my project contract lines, what was originally held and what was already released. So the calculation here will be the new percentage of retainage release, 75%, and you're going to multiply the project contract line and then subtract what has already been released. So Sage won't release 75%, they're going to now release to catch up to what you've entered for 75% because you've already released 50%. So then you'll subtract what has already been released. So we've released $250 on this foundation work line. In this example, too, let's say you enter 40% and that's below the 50% you've already released. So if you enter a percentage lower than what's already been released, every line calculates to a 0 or negative, resulting in an error. So no batch will be created. You have to release retainage that is already over what you've currently released. So in my first example, you saw me release 50%. If I were to go into Intacct and release 40%, no batch will be created because it's below what has already been released. So you can see the calculation here for the foundation work line. We're taking the 40% entered, multiplying it by the project contract line amount, and subtracting the 500 from the 50% in my first example, leaving me with a negative $100. So the status of this batch has been skipped. No batch was created and all lines were skipped. So now let's go to scene 3. This is a release for all remaining retainage. Let's say you've released, we'll go with 50% retainage, and now I need to release all retainage. So in this example, you're just going to enter 100%, regardless of how much has previously been released. You're releasing it on all project contract lines. So retainage is now 0% on the contract. So with my foundation work line, I'm going to take 100%, multiply that by what was held, and I'm going to subtract what was already released. So it's going to release the remaining $500 and so on. Let's do an example of this now. So we're going back into the project contract I was working on, and we're going to release all of the retainage. So you can see the percent of total retainage that was previously released, that's 50. So now I want to release all the retainage, so I'm going to enter 100. Enter your GL posting date and release date. You can add a note. Select release. So let's see if that released all the retainage. Go back into the billing details tab, and you can see here that I received an error. The batch was not released because there wasn't enough retainage on that line, on those lines. So let's release on another contract. We'll pull up the project contract invoice that has been created. I'm just going to print it. And you'll see that we're still currently holding 10% retainage. So if I needed to go and release all of my retainage, I would enter 100%. So enter 100. Currently 10% was held. and now we're releasing 100%. You can refresh your page. Go into the retainage release invoices, and you'll see that all of the retainage that was held on my invoice, or if I had numerous invoices, it would all be released. Let's go to some examples of some errors you may receive. So how do you handle errors when you receive one? So let's say in the situation, an invoice line in a draft release batch you were trying to release. So if your invoice is in draft, you'll receive an error if you're trying to release retainage on that. What happens is the line cannot be included in a new batch while a draft batch exists for it. So what you need to do is to post or remove the draft batch line, then re-enter. Let's say the percent entered results in a 0 or negative release for a line. That line is going to be skipped and the batch will not be created. This happens when you've released 50% on lines and then you try to release something lower than 50%, so you try to release 30 or 40%. What you need to do, no action is needed. That line already is at what you've targeted. So you need to verify an AR retainage release. That retainage has been released already for the contract. Let's say the percent entered results in a 0 or negative for all lines. No retainage batch will be created. You need to confirm whether retainage is fully released, or you need to enter a higher percentage if more needs to be released. So a quick reference here, for first time release, you can enter any percent. So an example would be 50% or 25%. Intact will apply directly to any held amount per line. If you need to catch up to a new target, enter your new target. It can't be below what you've previously released. So if you've entered 50 and need to now release 75%, just enter 75%. Enter the total percent you want released, not the additional percent. So it's going to be the total amount you need released on the contract to catch up to the new target. If you need to release all remaining retainage, you'll just enter 100%. And this closes out all retainage across every line. Before your team uses this feature, confirm setup is complete. AR retainage is enabled in accounts receivable, as well as order entry transaction definitions. The user type needs to be set to business, construction manager, or project manager, and the correct AR and project contract permissions need to be assigned to the user. Flexible retainage release lets you release retainage across all invoice lines on a project contract with a single percentage. The percentage is a minimum target, not an incremental amount. Sage Intacct handles the line-by-line math and creates the AR retainage release batch automatically. If you have any questions, please reach out to our team. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.
Another exciting feature of R2 is the enhancements to AP automation. So in AP automation, when you were uploading a bill, previously you would have had the option to generate each bill with single line item that summarizes the total or all line items and associated amounts. That is being replaced as of the release, and it's going to appear within the actual bill after it's been uploaded. So if I go over to my release notes, I can see what that will look like when the bill has been uploaded. You'll have the option to choose single line summary or all line items for your bills. Also, as part of this release, within automated transactions, you will see now an upload button within that section. So you'll be able to just stay within automated transactions whenever you're doing your AP automation. Also, as part of the release, if I click into this intelligent three-way matching with AP automation, this is another new feature. So it's AI-driven line level matching across your POs, your vendor invoices, and it's just going to give you, more precise automation. The system is going to learn from what you've done previously. And there is a little bit of setup to that. you're just going to have to click into those release notes. So if I'm back in Intacct and I go to home, I can see my read the release notes here. If you click on that button, it'll bring you into this tab where you can see intelligent three-way matching with AP automation. If you click in here, it tells you how to go ahead and set that up in your configuration, and then the system can start learning from that. So that's going to round out our videos for R2. Some exciting updates this release. And, you know, as always, you do have to go in and update your permissions, especially for the admin role, to make sure that everything that is part of this release is applied to that role. And if you have any recommendations for enhancements that you'd like to see, you can, of course, let us know and we can put it out to the community. Thanks very much for watching. And as always, like and subscribe.